I thought I knew who I was, until one reckless moment turned my world upside down. My name's Eli, a 22-year-old college junior in Seattle, and I never imagined I'd betray my best friend for a forbidden pull I couldn't resist. It all started one rainy night, a night that felt ordinary until it wasn't, when a single conversation changed everything. Noah and I had been inseparable since our first week at the University of Washington. We'd bonded over late-night study sessions, bad campus coffee, and a shared love for arguing about old sci-fi movies. He was the kind of friend who'd drop everything to help you move or talk you through a rough day. But that night, Noah was stuck at a group project, leaving me alone at his off-campus apartment. I didn't expect his older brother Caleb to be there. At 30, Caleb was different, sharp, self-assured, with a quiet intensity that made my stomach twist in ways I didn't want to admit. He'd moved back to Seattle after years away, and I'd only met him a few times before. But something about him always lingered in my mind. I was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when Caleb walked in, holding 2 beers. "Noah's going to be late," he said, his voice low, almost teasing. He handed me a bottle, our fingers brushing for a split second. My heart skipped, and I told myself it was nothing, just a reflex. But when he sat across from me, his gaze locked on mine, the air felt heavier. "You're not like Noah's other friends," he said, leaning forward. "You've got this quiet thing going on, like you're holding something back." I laughed, trying to shake off the heat creeping up my neck. "Just trying to survive midterms," I said. But my voice sounded unsteady. Caleb didn't laugh. He just watched me, like he could see through the joke to something deeper. Something I hadn't even admitted to myself. I'd known I was attracted to guys for years, but I kept it buried, hidden behind easy smiles and vague answers about dating. Coming out in a world that didn't always feel safe wasn't something I was ready for, not with my conservative hometown still echoing in my head, not with Noah's effortless acceptance of everyone making me feel like I'd let him down if he knew. The conversation shifted to safer ground. Music, movies, Caleb's old job in Portland. But every pause felt charged. When I got up to grab another beer, he followed me to the kitchen. "You don't have to hide, you know," he said, standing closer than he needed to. My breath caught. "Hide what?" I managed, but my voice was barely a whisper. He didn't answer, just stepped closer, his hand grazing my arm. The touch sent a jolt through me, like a spark igniting something I'd tried to ignore. I should have stepped back. I should have left. But I didn't. Instead, I stood frozen as Caleb's hand lingered, his eyes searching mine for permission. My heart pounded, a mix of fear and want screaming in my chest. Then, in a moment that felt like it stopped time, he leaned in. Not a kiss, just a closeness that made the world shrink to the space between us. "This stays between us," he whispered. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. The guilt hit me instantly, sharp and heavy. Noah was my best friend, and Caleb was his brother. This was wrong, but the pull was stronger than my resolve. When Noah got home an hour later, laughing about his group's terrible presentation, I forced a smile, acting like nothing had changed. But everything had. Caleb's glance as he left the room burned into me, a silent promise of more. I lay awake that night, replaying the moment, torn between the thrill of it and the weight of betraying Noah. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a mistake I'd bury. But deep down, I knew I was already in too deep, and the secret we'd started was only the beginning. The line had been crossed, and there was no going back. That moment with Caleb in Noah's apartment had cracked something open inside me, a longing I couldn't bury, no matter how hard I tried. I was Eli, the guy who always played it safe, but now I was caught in a secret that threatened to unravel everything. The next few weeks were a blur of stolen glances and hidden moments. Caleb found ways to be near me, dropping by Noah's place when I was there, texting me late at night with excuses about needing advice or wanting to catch up. Each message lit up my phone and my pulse, pulling me deeper into something I knew was wrong. I'd delete the texts, afraid Noah might see, but I couldn't delete the way my heart raced when Caleb's name appeared. One evening, Noah had a study group, and I was at their place, supposedly waiting for him. Caleb was there, fixing his bike in the garage. "Need a hand?" he asked, his voice casual but his eyes anything but. I followed him, telling myself I'd keep my distance. But the second we were alone, the air shifted. He stepped close, his hand brushing mine as he handed me a wrench. The touch lingered, deliberate, and I didn't pull away. "We shouldn't," I whispered, but my voice betrayed me, weak with want. Caleb's smile was small, knowing. "Then why are you here?" he asked. Before I could answer, he kissed me, quick, urgent, like he was stealing the moment before it could slip away. My resolve crumbled, and I kissed him back, the thrill drowning out the guilt. Every time it happened, I swore it was the last, but it never was. A late-night coffee run turned into Caleb's hand on my knee under the table. A quick stop at his place to grab Noah's notes became a stolen embrace in the hallway. Each moment was a rush, like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing one wrong move could send me crashing. But the guilt was always there, clawing at me. Noah was my best friend, the one who'd stayed up with me during finals, who'd laughed with me until we couldn't breathe. And here I was, betraying him with his own brother. Noah started to notice something was off. "You're quiet lately," he said one day, tossing a controller at me during a gaming session. "Everything okay?" His tone was light, but his eyes searched mine, like he was trying to crack a code. I forced a laugh, muttering about school stress, but my stomach twisted. Lying to him felt like poison, spreading with every word. I wanted to tell him, to rip the truth open and face whatever came next. But the fear of losing him, of losing everything, kept me silent. Caleb, though, seemed unfazed. He'd come out years ago, shrugging off judgment like it was nothing. "People talk," he told me once, his voice steady. "Let them." But I wasn't like him. I wasn't out. I hadn't even said the word gay out loud to myself, let alone to anyone else. The thought of Noah finding out, of facing his hurt or disgust, made my chest tighten. Yet every time Caleb's hand found mine, every time his voice dropped low with a promise, I let myself fall deeper. By the time Noah invited me to a campus party, the weight of the secret was crushing. I stood next to him, watching him joke with friends, while Caleb's texts burned in my pocket. I was living two lives, one as Noah's best friend, the other as the guy sneaking around with his brother. The thrill was still there, but it was laced with dread. I knew this couldn't last. Something had to give, and I was terrified of what would break when it did. The secret was a weight I carried everywhere, heavier with each passing day. I was Eli, caught between the thrill of Caleb's touch and the guilt of betraying Noah, my best friend. The line I'd crossed wasn't just a moment anymore. It was a chasm, and I was slipping closer to the edge. Noah's suspicions were growing. At a campus coffee shop, he leaned across the table, his voice sharp. "You're dodging me, Eli. What's going on?" His eyes, usually warm, were hard, searching for answers I couldn't give. I mumbled something about exams, but my hands shook as I gripped my coffee. The lies were piling up, and I could feel them cracking under his gaze. Noah didn't push, but the silence between us was loud, a warning that he was starting to see through me. The rumors started small, whispers in the halls at UW. Someone had seen me with Caleb near his apartment, too close for just friends. By the next week, I overheard a classmate mutter, "Eli's got some secret side thing." The word secret hit like a punch. I wasn't out, not to Noah, not to anyone. The fear of being exposed clawed at me, a constant hum of panic. I'd spent years hiding who I was, dodging questions about dating, keeping my truth locked away. Now it felt like the world was peeling back the layers I'd worked so hard to protect. Caleb didn't care about the gossip. "Let them talk," he said one night, his voice calm as we sat in his car after a quick meetup. I've dealt with worse. He'd come out in his 20s, faced the fallout from his family, and built a life on his own terms. But I wasn't him. The thought of my classmates' stares, of Noah's judgment, made my throat tighten. "It's not that easy," I snapped, my voice sharper than I meant. Caleb just shrugged, his hand resting on mine for a moment before he pulled away. "You'll figure it out," he said, but his nonchalance stung. I wanted him to understand the fear that kept me up at night, the dread of losing Noah, of losing myself. The pressure built at a campus event, a fundraiser Noah had dragged me to. He was his usual self, charming the crowd, while I stood on the sidelines, my phone buzzing with Caleb's texts. I ignored them, but my nerves were raw. A group of students nearby whispered, their eyes flicking toward me. "Heard he's sneaking around with some guy," one said, loud enough for me to hear. My face burned, and I bolted for the exit, heart pounding. Outside, the Seattle rain soaked me as I tried to breathe. Was this who I was now? The guy hiding a secret, judged by strangers, lying to his best friend? Later that night, Noah caught me off guard. We were back at his place playing video games, but the air felt heavy. He paused the game, turning to me. "Eli, level with me. Are you hiding something?" His voice was low, almost pleading. My stomach dropped. I wanted to confess, to tell him about Caleb, about the part of me I'd kept buried for years. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I forced a smile, muttering, "Just stressed, man." Noah's jaw tightened, and he looked away. The trust we'd built over years was fraying, and I was the one holding the scissors. Caleb texted me later, asking to meet. Against my better judgment, I went. In an empty parking lot, he leaned close, his voice soft. "You're overthinking this," he said. "We're not hurting anyone." But he was wrong. Every moment with him was another lie to Noah, another crack in the life I'd known. I pulled away, my voice shaking. "This is tearing me apart." Caleb's eyes softened, but he didn't argue. For the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in him, like he knew we were on borrowed time. As I walked away, the rain blurring my vision, I felt the walls closing in. The secret was no longer a thrill, it was a trap, and I didn't know how to escape. The secret had become a noose, tightening with every lie I told Noah. I was Eli, a 22-year-old drowning in my own choices, torn between the pull of Caleb and the guilt of betraying my best friend. Each day felt like a countdown to disaster, and I could sense the end coming, fast and unforgiving. Noah's distance grew impossible to ignore. He stopped inviting me to hang out as often, his texts short and clipped. When we did meet, his eyes held a quiet suspicion, like he was piecing together a puzzle I didn't want him to solve. I tried to act normal, cracking jokes and playing video games like we used to. But the ease between us was gone. Every laugh felt forced, every silence a reminder of the truth I was hiding. I wanted to come clean, to tell him about Caleb and the part of myself I'd kept buried. But the fear of his reaction, anger, disgust, rejection, kept me silent. Caleb, meanwhile, pushed forward like nothing was wrong. He'd text me to meet up, his messages casual but laced with an urgency that pulled me in. One night, after Noah canceled plans last minute, I found myself at Caleb's apartment. "You're stressing too much," he said, his voice low as he stood close, his hand brushing mine. The familiar spark ignited, but it was tainted with dread. "This isn't just stress," I said, stepping back. "Noah's noticing. People are talking." Caleb's expression didn't change. "Let them," he said, like it was that simple. But it wasn't. Not for me. I wasn't out, and the whispers on campus, about me, about us, were getting louder. I could feel the walls of my carefully guarded life crumbling. The breaking point came on a cold Seattle evening. Noah had invited me over to watch a movie, a rare attempt to reconnect. I arrived early, hoping to mend things, but Caleb was there, alone. The air between us crackled, and before I could stop myself, I was standing too close, his hand on my arm, pulling me in. "Just this once," he whispered, and I didn't pull away. The moment was reckless, intoxicating, but it shattered when the door slammed open. Noah stood there, his face frozen in shock. "What the hell?" he said, his voice raw, eyes darting between me and Caleb. My heart stopped. I stepped back, words failing me, but Caleb stayed calm, almost defiant. "It's what it looks like," he said, no hesitation. Noah's face twisted, hurt, betrayal, anger, all at once. "You're my brother," he spat at Caleb, then turned to me. "And you, my best friend?" The word friend cut deeper than anything else. I tried to speak, to explain, but my throat was tight, my mind a mess. "Noah, I'm sorry," I managed, but it sounded hollow. He shook his head, his voice breaking. How long have you been lying to me?" I couldn't answer. Caleb stepped forward, trying to defuse, but Noah cut him off. "Don't. Just don't." He stormed out, the door slamming behind him, leaving me with Caleb in a silence that felt like a void. I turned to Caleb, desperate for him to say something, anything to fix this. But he just shrugged, his voice cool. "He'll get over it." That was the moment I realized Caleb didn't feel the weight of this the way I did. To him, it was a fling, a risk worth taking. To me, it was my life, my friendship, my identity, everything, falling apart. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice shaking. Caleb's eyes flickered, but he didn't argue. He just nodded, like he'd known this was coming. I left, the rain outside matching the storm inside me. Noah was gone, Caleb was pulling away, and I was alone. The secret I'd clung to now a wound I couldn't close. The fallout was a void I couldn't escape. Noah's absence left a hole where our friendship used to be, and Caleb's indifference cut deeper than I'd expected. I was Eli, 22, and the secret I'd kept with Caleb had cost me everything. My best friend, my sense of self, my place in the world. Seattle's rain felt like a constant reminder of the mess I'd made, but I had to find a way forward, even if I didn't know how. Noah stopped answering my texts. The silence was worse than anger. It was like I'd been erased from his life. At school, the rumors had spread, sharp and relentless. Whispers followed me in the halls, and I caught sidelong glances from classmates who'd once been friendly. "Eli's got secrets," someone muttered during a lecture, and my face burned. I wasn't out, hadn't even said the word gay to myself in a mirror, and now it felt like the world was deciding my truth for me. The fear I'd buried for years, fear of judgment, of losing the people I cared about, was now my reality. Caleb faded too. After Noah caught us, he texted less, his messages short and distant. When I confronted him, he was blunt. "I told you I don't do complications," he said, his voice flat. It stung to realize I'd been a thrill to him, nothing more. I'd risked everything, my friendship, my reputation, for someone who didn't care enough to stay. The guilt was crushing, but so was the loneliness. I'd lost Noah, alienated friends, and I was left staring at the pieces of a life I didn't recognize. Days blurred into weeks, each one heavier than the last. I avoided Noah's apartment, the campus spots we used to haunt, but I couldn't avoid myself. Late at night, I'd replay the moment Noah walked in, his face twisted with betrayal. I hated myself for lying, for letting Caleb pull me into something I knew was wrong. But more than that, I hated that I'd hidden who I was for so long. The secret wasn't just about Caleb. It was about me, about the truth I'd been too scared to face. Then, a flyer on a campus bulletin board caught my eye. An LGBTQ+ support group meeting. I hesitated, my stomach twisting at the thought of walking in. But I was tired of running. The first meeting was awkward, sitting in a circle with strangers, but their stories hit hard. One guy talked about losing friends after coming out. Another shared how he'd learned to forgive himself for mistakes. I didn't speak much, but listening felt like a lifeline. For the first time, I wasn't alone in my fear, my shame, my hope. Week by week, the group became my anchor. I started talking about Caleb, about Noah, about the years I'd spent hiding. "You're not your mistakes," one member said, her voice kind but firm. "You're allowed to be you." Those words stuck, slowly chipping away at the guilt. I began to see that being gay wasn't the problem. Hiding it, letting it fester into a secret that hurt others, was. I wasn't ready to shout my truth from the rooftops, but I was starting to accept it, piece by piece. One night, after a group meeting, I sat alone in my dorm, staring at my phone. I typed out a message to Noah. "I messed up. I should have told you everything. About me, about Caleb. I'm so sorry. I'm still here if you ever want to talk." My thumb hovered over the send button, heart pounding. I didn't know if he'd respond, if he'd ever forgive me, but I hit send anyway. It wasn't about fixing things. It was about being honest for once. The rain still fell outside, but it didn't feel as heavy anymore. I was Eli, flawed and figuring it out, but not broken. The group had shown me that my story wasn't over, that I could rebuild, even if it meant starting alone. I didn't have all the answers, but I had hope. Hope that I could be myself, that I could find a way to make things right, one step at a time.